The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
And welcome to Chasing Purpose. I'm your host, Kathleen Connor, and if this is your first time here today, I'm really glad you found your way in, and I hope you stay a while. And if you've been here before, well, welcome back. We have a lot to cover today. So let's start with say cheese, 2 words we've been hearing our whole life. Smile, look happy, make it easy for everyone else. Somewhere along the way, social media handed us a filter, a lens, an audience, and a highlight reel that we ran with. We performed, we posed, we showed up as a version of ourselves that we thought everybody wanted to see. My guest today, Tanya Boggs, is here, and she spent her whole career behind the lens of the camera, watching women do exactly that, perform. And, you know, at the age of 21, she received an HIV diagnosis, and at the time, was considered a death sentence. That moment didn't break her, it built her. And today has a personal brand. She's a personal brand photographer, a visibility strategist, and a public speaker. She hosts her own podcast, which I hope you listen to as well. She's great. And the podcast is You Are Here. She helps women stop shrinking behind their shadows. They stop hiding and start showing up exactly who they are, fully, courageously, and unmistakably. Tanya, thank you for being here today, and welcome to Chasing Purpose.
Thank you, Kathleen. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
So you've spent years behind the lens of a camera. What do you see when you're filming and taking photos of women and their faces and in their energy and in their body? What do they actually show you that we don't see in the finished product?
Well, the first thing is most women hate to be in front of the camera.
Yeah,
so right. They're very uncomfortable. So that's a whole process in and of itself. And as women, we often beat ourselves up. So when they're looking at images themselves, they're not looking at how they show up, right? They're looking at, my double chin. Oh, my arm, my flabby arm. Like we pick ourselves apart. So we're always sort of trying to fit in this box that we think we should be in, right? And so we get nervous in front of the camera because we're afraid that we're not going to look good, that we're not going to look comfortable, that we're not going to look beautiful, that we're not, like, there's all these reasons that make us hate being in front of the camera. So I think that's like the very first shot out of the gate, is before they even show up, they have all these concerns. So they get really uncomfortable. That's the very first thing that happens. What do I do with my hands? How do I stand? And I know a lot of other photographers will talk people into poses. I definitely give suggestions when they're struggling, because I like them to get comfortable and loosen up. But I usually say to people when they're in front of my camera, your job right now is to get comfortable in your own body.
Oh, that's a great thing to say.
And I'm like, how do you normally stand? You're chopping vegetables in the kitchen. You're standing, you're having a glass of wine with your girlfriends. Okay, maybe you have a glass of wine in your hand, but what's your body doing? They're like, I've never thought about it. I'm like, I always have weight on one foot, my hips popped out, and I sort of show them how I normally stand. I'm like, I know this about me because I've been watching myself do it forever. And so I'm also a talker. So when I'm working with them, in order to sort of tamp down their insecurities, I start talking and asking questions or sharing, and that starts to loosen them up. And then sometimes I'll ask questions while I have the camera in my hand, and they're standing there smiling, and they won't answer the question. And they're like, okay, take the picture. I'm like, no. So I finally go, I'm like the dentist. I put tools in your mouth and then I ask you a question. I want an answer because I'm waiting for what happens right after you answer the question, right?
Right.
Because you might laugh, your eyes might brighten, like something may happen. So I'm kind of waiting for those moments. And at some point, they'll start to talk if they're answering a question, or I'll put my camera down and let them talk. And they'll do something that's very them, and you can see it immediately. They'll cross one foot in front of the other, or they'll relax their stance, or they shift their weight. And I'm like, there you are, don't move. Don't move. That's it.
But what you said earlier is exactly what we should do in our life, is be comfortable within ourselves.
Right.
And
right.
I think it starts with that critical voice that you talked about, that as human beings, we all walk around with someone, ourselves, talking to us in our body and head about our self-image, our posture, our how we think other people see us, our flabby arms, our double chins, or whatever it is. And it's really about, in my opinion, what I took away, which was so powerful, what you said, was about being comfortable within themselves. And you just described such a great way of how you talk to them, and through that to get them to maybe just relax a little bit and maybe just feel comfortable within their body. And that little dial switch that you talked about is so important. And I think not only through photography, but also through life as females, I think we need to do more of that, right? We need to drop our shoulders. We need to relax a little bit more. We need to realize, I think, that not only in photos, people, as you know, you've looked at millions of yours probably, as well as when you look at other people's photos, I'm sure that you see things that looks staged, or that looks fake, or that looks, I would have done it differently. I mean, we all do that. And you're not doing it in a judging way. You're doing it as a professional, right? You're doing it as, I would have seen something different, or I do see something different. And so it's so amazing, the talent that you have with everything you do, the podcast and your speaking events and your photography, that you can look at things other than in different ways than we do, especially internally. So let's just talk about how you see, and how I think, again, we do hate to be in front of a camera, and social media makes us have a lens or a filter in front of us, or whatever we want to do. But if we just turn the kaleidoscope, it's still beautiful, right? The colors are still vibrant and still beautiful. Right. It's that whole self-awareness piece and self-trust piece. So do you find that most women that you take photographs of, or that you talk to in your through your podcast or your audience or in your speaking events, that's what, as women individually and maybe as a group, that we do that, we could do that better? I shouldn't say we do it wrong, but we could do it better.
I think that I think our inner critic gets the best of us, and if we could just work on that. I don't think our inner critic is us. You said that voice, that you say the things you say to yourself. I don't think it's me saying it to me. I think I think about it as the inner critic. And it's things that are being played back to you that you've learned culturally, you've learned by watching your mother, you've learned by hearing other people do it, you've learned because you looked at Vogue too many times and you thought, I need to be that skinny. I think it's something that's created, and you can also deconstruct it. And I think a friend of mine said something to me a few years ago, and it really hit me between the eyeballs. And it took me a second. I was like, oh, I'm feeling so these pants just don't fit anymore. I'm feeling a little chubby. And I was saying the crappy things about myself. And she said, don't talk about my friend like that. And I was like, what? I'm not talking about your friend. I was like, oh, I'm the friend. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow. And I've started saying that to people when they start beating up on themselves. I'm like, don't talk about my friend like that, because we're the only ones that feel that way. And when I watch women analyze their photographs and they're talking about their, oh, my arm looks fat there, oh, my double chin, I'm like, first of all, I'm going to help you with that a little bit, because the camera does add a little bit of weight. But I'm like, people shouldn't be looking at that. People are not looking at your arm. People are not looking at your double chin. I hope they're looking at your smile and your eyes and how comfortable you are, right? If they're picking you apart, that's about them. And you don't
Right.
want those people to hire you anyway, right? So it's like, we have to like realize that we should be I shouldn't say the word should. I hate it when people should on me. We can be more conscious about the way we talk to ourselves, because we're responsible for loving ourselves. We're responsible for being kind to ourselves, right? If we can't do it to ourselves, how can we expect that from other people? So I do think it's an important conversation that we look at and we start observing them, right? If you just start kind of stepping outside of them and watching them talk to you that way, it's like, tell them to shut up.
Yeah, well, your friend was perfect because how she said it was so graceful and so kind and compassionate, but it also makes you realize, and when you said it, what I thought of is, if she can have my back, why can't I have my own back, right?
Yes.
As that she's
Yes.
standing up for me, to like a bully, and I was the one bullying myself by my critical
Exactly.
voice.
Exactly.
Because we've heard it through, our parents or our partners or our past relationships or just society, right? We want to be like everybody else is in the magazines and in our social media posts. So we tend to be harder on ourselves. But your friend did it in such a graceful way. So, blessings and love to her, because, people wouldn't have. I mean, I've done it, and my friends have heard me do it, and I have fabulous friends, and this isn't a judgment on them, but that's a great thing to say, and I will certainly take that with me and use it going forward, not only for myself when I say things like, "Hey, if I don't have my own back, who does?" Right? And also, if I hear my son, as a teenager, saying things about himself, or my friends, or whatever situation I'm in or environment, it's a great way to say it. So your friend gave you grace that day to use. So
she did, and she offered me an invitation, right, to stop talking to myself about like that. So I think it's an important shift. And one of the places that it really started showing up for me, so I come from a dance background, and I started salsa dancing, and I loved it. And when I first would go, I would just dress the way I normally dressed, but some of these women would show up and they would have on leather jeans and crop top shirts and fancy skirts and all this stuff. And some of them, an older version of me, and maybe a younger version of me, a different version of me a long time ago, may have judged people for wearing things like that, right? Because I don't even wear a crop top. I'm like, I don't want to, nope, don't want anybody seeing that. And I started noticing how amazing and beautiful these women were. And some of them were a bigger size than I was. And I was like, the difference between my ability to wear that and their ability to wear that is that they are owning it.
Yes.
And they look amazing. And so I started shifting, and I started buying very different kinds of clothes to dance in, because I was like, I'm going to wear tight leather pants. I'm going to wear a crop top. I'm going to wear the cute, sexy skirt. Right. And because I was like, if they can rock it, I can rock it. I just have to believe in myself enough and stop judging my body and show up and feel the way that I want to feel. Right. Because it makes you feel good. And so, there's a lot of different ways. If you just shift your perspective a little bit, and let, a different version come in,
And because you're so influential with your groups and your support group, as well as you're being supportive to others, how do you think, what's the first thing that as women we could do to stop performing or to be more comfortable in choosing clothes that we want to wear and should wear, right? We should emphasize our
Right.
bodies no matter what size they are, right? I mean, it's our body, it's our, it's our vessel for love and to be, it should, shine. I certainly be respectful with what you wear, but
Right.
and your environments, but there's a how do we do that? What advice would you give? You have a daughter, and as she was growing up, what advice would you give her now? It probably wasn't the advice you gave her then, but or someone when you see them.
It's funny. I think she gives me more advice on that than I do. Her generation has really leaned into owning who they are and being unapologetically who they are. And so she wears clothes and I'm like, oh my God, you look amazing. Like you look so adorable. And, and she wears stuff that I'm like, I would have never thought to put that stuff together. I would have never, so I usually check in with her and I'm like, how's this? What should I change? What do I need to work on? Like, so she'll coach me sometimes into how to make it a little cooler or whatever. But a lot of times we have very similar taste. We've had moments where we lived together for a while during 2020 and for shortly after it all opened up, and we'd go to an event, we'd both come out of the room and we'd be wearing the same thing and we'd be like, who's changing?
Right. Yeah, it happened. Well, I mean, obviously you grew up in the same, you raised her in the same environment that you were in. So yeah, I get it. That's certainly something that happens. What about
I think you can also dress for your body. I think if people learn how to dress for their body, because you can wear anything if you know how to the shape and what works best with your shape and stuff like that. You can still wear form-fitting clothes. They just have to be sort of made for you. And the other thing I think people miss in terms of the way they dress is that most people can't buy off the rack. Even if you're skinny, like maybe we think, oh, only skinny girls fit in this stuff. No, it's not about skinny girls. It's about the way it's cut. And so I will buy things both new and secondhand, and I'll take it and get it fitted for me, because making your clothes fit you well, the waist is not too big or the hips are not too big, or the length is just right. Like those things matter. And so I'm like, spend the little bit of extra money and then you'll have it forever and you'll love it. So
I agree. I am a thrifter, and I also, and I'm, I don't shop often, but when I shop, I look for fit. I don't go in and look for a certain color or a certain style or any of that. It looks for fit. And if it doesn't fit the way I want to, I do spend some money on alterations, because I am all about, it doesn't have to be form fitting, but I have to be comfortable in it. I can't, you can't wear clothes that you're tugging on the shoulders, or that you're just, that you're tripping over the hems or something along those lines. It doesn't matter how perfect they look on the rack. It has to look and feel. I'm all about feel. It has to feel right on, right? Because, feeling right on means feeling right in as well. Yes. So that's
which is what I tell my clients. I'm like, when I have a whole series of conversations with them to help them plan and get ready and feel good before they show up, before they're ever in front of the camera. And one of them is, when you're picking out your clothes, try them all on first. Like, don't pull something out of the back of your closet you haven't worn in 2 years. Put them all on. And there's a few requirements. You must feel like $1 million when you put it on.
Right.
And if you don't have anything that makes you feel like $1 million, rent it or buy it and start dressing like you feel like $1 million. And then I'm like, make sure it doesn't move, because I'm going to ask you to move. So if every time I ask you to move, the arm folds down and your bra strap's showing, I'm going to have to keep correcting you. And then I'm going to have to keep fixing it. And because I'm not going to do that stuff in post. Fix in 5 seconds what you can fix before you get the shot. Don't spend an hour in post trying to, like, I'm an old school film photographer. So I'm like, I want you to be comfortable, because if your waistband is too tight while I'm photographing you, the only thing you're going to be thinking about is how uncomfortable your stomach is because your jeans are squishing you. So make sure it fits, make sure it feels comfortable, and make sure you feel like $1 million. Like, those are the basic requirements, period.
Yeah, I think that we don't spend enough time thinking and feeling things that and making them right so that we feel right. I mean, I've had examples in my life too. You know, I had a wedding dress as a bride, a wedding dress that of course was altered. We all alter them. And this was, you know, pretty much in the early 90s. So pretty heavy dress, as you can imagine, you know, with the big puffy shoulders and all of that type of stuff. And I didn't try it on before. I tried it on through the process or alterations. And I was living, you know, 3,000 miles away from where the wedding was. So, you know, I just assumed, you know, I'd work with this woman at the wedding shop or the dress shop, and she's got it. Well, unbeknownst, the day of the wedding, it had the interface, which is like netting. It is literally netting inside to keep it kept the shoulders, you know, still high and with the pads and all that. But it cut into me the whole day. It was, and by the end of the night, it was literally raw. And I remember just being so uncomfortable on my wedding day. I mean, everything was uncomfortable about that whole situation and relationship, but that's a whole other topic for a podcast. But anyway, I just remember it. I remember just to this day, I can still feel it was the right shoulder, still feel how uncomfortable and how heavy that felt. And that's exactly how the relationship felt as well. It was, and the whole day it was more performative for my mom. And it was like her wedding, because she never had a big wedding. And I was it, you know, and so it just felt so heavy that day. And so I think that that's something that we don't do. My sister and I are years apart as far as age, but you know, again, we dress alike because, you know, we were raised together. We have the same somewhat style, but she wears her clothes a lot differently than I do. You know, I wear them where my shoulders fit on the shoulder. And again, nothing against her, but she likes her clothes a little bit more baggy and a little bit more less form fitting. And so whenever I think of like, oh, my sister would love this, I was like, oh, I gotta, you know, she would like it a size bigger, not because of her size, because she's very small like I am, but mostly because of how she wears things.
Talking about weddings, those are performances in themselves. I literally knew somebody. I don't do weddings. I've never shot weddings. I wanted to raise my daughter, not be working all weekend. And I just don't agree with the wedding industry in a lot of ways. I think there's a bride tax that's huge. Like, a makeup artist that I would hire to come in to work on a client will charge way more if it's a bride, you know, and it's crazy. It's crazy pants. And then people are like spending a small fortune on weddings. I'm like, that's a down payment on a house.
Yeah.
I had 15 people at my wedding. And I think your wedding dress was a metaphor for your marriage.
It's the whole thing. Yeah, it's like a whole thing. It's just
I had an assistant who worked for me, and she was trying to find a wedding photographer, and she literally just wanted to do it. Like, she was willing to put most of her budget on the wedding photographer because it was about the photos for her. And I was like,
is she still married?
Yes, she actually is. And that was a long time ago. So kudos to them, because I was like, don't do it for the photos.
Yeah, I was just having this conversation. I don't think it was with Wendy. She was a wedding event planner prior to doing her amazing things that she does now, the podcasts and everything else that she does. But I think it was her that I was talking to, how we spend so much time and effort. The culture spends so much time and effort on the day of the wedding and preparing for it, and so little time about the relationship. You know, we don't even ask the basic questions. I remember the wedding I was talking about in the early 90s, it was a Catholic ceremony. And at that time, I'm sure even now, because they haven't changed, or advance much. The Catholic Church required us to go through some kind of marriage, preparation type stuff. I can't think of pre-Cana or something it was called. Anyway, and I remember doing it, and I remember some of the questions. It was some of the first questions I actually had a chance to ask him, like, how much money could I spend without your permission? Or could I go, and if we needed a new TV, and at that time, they're the big TVs and the heavy ones, and they were $600 or $1,000. Do I have to ask your permission type stuff? And it was interesting. We started with probably maybe 30 couples on the Saturdays that we went. And some of them fell out of the group, whether it was their choice because they changed, ideas of how they were getting married, or changed the environment or the venue, or that this made them realize that they weren't compatible. I don't know, but it was interesting to see. I think we do spend so much time and money. We should do a requirement that you have to go through couple counseling prior to your marriage.
There's a few churches that do that. I think the Catholic Church, that's not just a Catholic thing. I think there are other I think the Jewish religion might do that, but I think even just other Christian churches that I've heard of, Christianity, I always separate, I don't know, the Catholic Church from everybody else. Somehow there's a little bit of a division there. But there's other churches that do that as well. And I think it's a great idea. I think ultimately you're right. We do spend a lot of time and effort on the wedding. And then do we spend a lot of time and effort dating each other for the rest of our lives, or making time to communicate about things? And the idea of having to ask for permission to spend money, I'm like, woo, that would be a trigger for me right there. I would be like, I'm out.
But probably wasn't at age 21, when I got birth, probably was just something you didn't even think about. I mean, those are things you forget. I think because at least at that young age, I mean, would tell my son, and I certainly have hinted to it. I don't tell him in a way because he's so young still. He's only 13. That, like, maybe marriages and mortgages, maybe not so much mortgages, if you can get into a good deal real estate wise, should wait till you're 30, should wait till,
I agree.
So young. I think we forget how much we evolve, or we should evolve and change, that we don't think about, like, what life do I want when I'm 40 or 50 or 60 or whatever it is. Is this person still going to be compatible with me?
Well, in your 20s, there's really, I mean, middle school, high school, 20s is very performative, all of it. And I think your 20s is when you start unpacking kind of who you really are. And then you don't really start hitting your stride until you're in your 30s. And then from there, you're like, okay, now I'm getting really clear on who I am and where I want to go and what I want to do. And then you hit your 40s and you're just like, woo. Then you hit your 50s. I'm like, better than ever.
Right. But I think in your 20s, I always say that I think in my 20s, especially for me, again, I think it was the 10 years, that decade. I went into it at 20 and out of it at 30 as a totally different person.
For sure. And
my taste, my views, my religious, and not that I changed or converted or did all that type of stuff. I just experienced so much more. I was, 21 and moved across country. And so, I finally saw and smelt. I remember the smells and the people and the differences of noise compared to where I lived outside of Boston. It was, it was still noise, but just differences. I remember obviously I knew that vegetables grew and all of that stuff, but I never saw it when I lived in Irvine, and the whole fields on the side of the highway were strawberries. And it was just like, oh my God, like, that's just amazing to see, the farm to table type atmosphere that you see the whole chain. And
everybody should drive across the country.
King. I was there with Rodney King and earthquakes and fires and all of that type of stuff. It was just so, my eyes were just wide open to everything I experienced culturally and diversity wise and corporate wise. It was just it was a great experience. But I think that 20s for me was just like, wow, I was just I was just a flash of a different person.
Because you're finally out of college, right? And you're just now sort of get to decide, right? Everybody's telling you who and what you should be up until then. And they've been telling you since you were a kid. And then I remember turning 20, I was 28. I usually have my breakdowns about big birthdays a year or two before they happen. So I was 28 and I was like, oh my God, I'm almost 30. And I had a meltdown. And I was like, I'm 28. I still don't have my bachelor's degree. I have a child. I'm not married. Like, and I was like, I started just sort of like, what the hell is going on? And then I thought about it and I said, I made all these deals with myself at 16, right? And culture tells us you're going to graduate from college, you're going to get married, you're going to have a baby. And by that point, you'll be like 22 when you get out of college and you get married and you start trying for kids and you're going to buy a house. I did everything out of order, by the way. But I was like, but I realized, I'm like, that's 16-year-old me looking at my life right now. And I get to decide and I'm like, I don't want those things like that. Like, I don't want to live this cultural norm, right? And I'm not doing it anyway. So I just get to decide. And I'm like, well, you're going to have your bachelor's done by the time you're 30. You did things a little out of order and, the rest will work itself out. And so I sort of gave my permission to get over it. Like, just get over it.
Right. Yeah, I think in some of the ways when we're kids, like we always have those thoughts about, oh, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll experience that. But then as you get older and you hear the terms like manifestation, throwing it out to the universe, you remember that what you throw out, you have to complete the sentence, like, oh, I want a good, nice relationship or partner. But then you also forget to add like emotionally available, financially stable. Like you forget to add the other
ability to have hard conversations.
Right. You just forget, you're like, oh, I just want him to have this characteristic or to look this way or will have a nice house. But then you're like, well, a nice house that has small payments, a nice house that's affordable. You have to add the little pieces that you learn along the way.
Yes. And then I end all of that with, or something better.
Oh, see, that's a great line too. I'm always learning when I have guests on here. So that's a great thing. So yeah, I'll take that away with me too.
Yeah, because you know what? I think we're limited to our imaginations, like by what we know. We don't really have the ability to go really far outside of what we know. And so for me, I'm like, I want beyond my wildest dreams. So I'm like, I'm going to leave it in your hands and just say, or something better. You can figure out what that is.
Yeah, because you have to, and so you trust whatever your spirit guides or the universe to throw what you've asked for or something better. And so I was just thinking about that the other day. I was thinking about like all the things I've thrown out to the world, like, oh, I want to, whatever. I want a great car. I want a great, material things when we were young, you dream about, but then you forget about, well, I want it to be paid off, you want, or something better, right? So that term is just so great again. So I know that you had some, diagnosis when you were 21 with HIV, and it would have absolutely traumatized and kept others into a world of fear, but it didn't for you. It changed you. How you mean such strength, internal strength at that time at such a young age as we talk about our 20s?
Yeah. Well, I made a couple of decisions in the very beginning that really helped ground me. And so the very day I was diagnosed, I had a first date that night. And my dad said, I guess you better cancel your date. And I was like, absolutely not. The moment I change the way I live my life is the moment that I lose the battle. So 21-year-old me was pretty wise. Although sometimes I think it might have been the cute boy that made me want to go on the date. But either way, I made a good choice. I think there was no other follow-up date, but that didn't matter. I sort of stuck to that. Like, I'm not going to change the way I live my life. And then a couple weeks later, I met with my doctor, the person who would become my doctor. And she told me that there was this small group of people who were living with AIDS, had no immune system, or were living 15 to 20 years, but they had no idea. Now, in 92, that was a big deal because the average lifespan, which was kind of random as I really look back and think about it, was about 18 months. And the guy that I got it from died about 18 months later.
Yeah.
Because he really believed that he would die. And he had had it for much longer than I did, because he had been a recovering IV drug user.
Mm.
And so he had been in recovery for a long time. So I'm like, he must have had it for years, but he didn't know about it. And then he
Right.
got it so in his head. And so I do think that played a factor. But when she told me that it was her job to keep me alive long enough for them to figure out how to stop the train in its tracks, I just believed her, and I left and I said, I'm going to be one of those people that lives 15 to 20 years. So I made those two decisions, and those became kind of my anchoring thing. And so I chased my dreams, and I honored the fact that if I was going to die young, I was going to make sure I could do as much as I could, and I wasn't going to let things hold me back or stop me, which is why I continued to, I started trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up, if that was going to be possible, and photography was one of them. So I started really developing that and working with that. And, I think my mindset was different. It was a little bit of this, and I wish I could give everybody the mindset that you're not promised time. Just because I have had something highlighted early on that I could die of, and I still probably could die of that. There's no guarantee that I'm not going to get in a car accident tomorrow, or, a million other cliche things I can say, but nobody is promised time. Like my brother died in a car accident. I should have been dead before he was.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look about, in the sort of scientific numbers game, but, so I didn't buy into that. And I savored life, and I stopped giving a fuck what people thought about me and what I was doing. And I started looking fear right in the eyes when it would confront me and say, get out of my way. I'm not listening to you. I don't have enough time to bother with you. Right. And so I think that was, it's not a present I could return, but it was a present of presence.
Right.
And,
Well, I think it also gave you a sense of self-trust so young,
yeah.
right? I mean, I think I didn't get self-trust in myself, self-trust, till, I think I always tested it. I just never, it was more self-awareness. Now it's self-trust, right? And so, but you had an opportunity to see someone that you cared for not have that self-trust, and to throw out to his universe and manifest his death, I guess, by not by giving up or giving in. And you were the opposite. You said, I'm going to trust myself to know that no matter what time I have, limited or not, I'm going to live every day for it.
Yeah.
So, amazing.
And that's my daily mantra. And I tell people this all the time. Every day is a great day to be alive, even on the hardest, worst days, even when you find out somebody died, even when you find out that your husband's leaving you, even when it doesn't matter. You're still above ground, right? So it's a shitty day, not having the best day, but it's a great day to still be alive, because you have tomorrow, and hopefully tomorrow,
what's the alternative?
and another
You have
tomorrow,
to get
and
through
another
it.
tomorrow. Yeah. So I'm like, what's the alternative?
Right.
So it's all
powerful.
Yeah. So
so powerful. And I know that you're wanting to, and you're doing some public speaking. Tell us a little bit about that, so that I know what your message is. I've heard you speak. You're a phenomenal speaker. So tell us a little bit about what you want to try to present out there to the world publicly.
So I think that we don't always recognize the sneaky ways that fear holds us back. And I still have it. It sneaks in. And we, talking about performing, we disguise it as logic. This is the logical thing to do. We disguise it as, I can't leave my job because I have to be responsible. This job that I hate, this job that I want to get rid of. I have this dream, but I can't quit my job because I need to be responsible. the timing is off. Like we say these little things to ourselves. Really, they're just fear kind of grabbing you by the back of your shirt and saying, stay right here, stay right here, stay right here. And until you recognize that that's what's happening and addressing it, right? So my idea is what I speak about is really sort of recognizing those moments where you can challenge it, you can take action. But first you have to recognize it. And when I started my podcast, this is a story I tell. I had talked about it for a year. I was like, this is what I want to do. I was really excited about it. But at first I was rebuilding my business because I was in the middle of getting separated and divorced. And so I had to rebuild my business and restructure some things so that I could be financially independent without the second income. And so as soon as I'd sort of gotten that set up, I was like, okay, it's time to start the podcast. I went out, I bought all the things. I bought the mic, I bought the, I had it all boxed up and brought it home, and it sat there. And every morning I'd wake up and it just sat there in the boxes. And I'm the girl who opened Christmas presents when her parents slipped out at Christmas time. And I would like slice the tape and pull it out, be like, this is what I'm getting, put it back in, like cover the tape. I don't like things sitting there wrapped. Like I don't like surprises. Don't tell me I have a surprise and then tell me I got to wait a month to know it. Just surprise me right now in the instant. Like, don't make me anticipate it. I hate that. And they just sat there in the box day after day, week after week for like 2 months. And I was like, what is going on? Like I couldn't figure it out. And I woke up in the morning and I looked at the boxes, and that little bitch fear was lurking in the dark corner. And she whispered, she tried not to make herself known. She goes, who do you think you are starting a podcast?
Mm.
And I was like, there you are. I've been wondering what the fuck is going on. I was like, get out of my house. Get out of here.
You're not going to talk to my friend like that. You're not going to talk to my friend like that.
Exactly. Get the hell out of here. And I just started opening all the stuff and I started doing all the research. And a month later, my first podcast was out. And it was me telling my story about my diagnosis. But I wanted to tell my story before I was hosting other women that were telling their resiliency stories and how they sort of moved through tough times in their life. And so it's like, it can be sneaky, right? And it will sit there and it will lurk and you don't know why it's doing it. But you have to, at some point it will reveal itself. And then sometimes you have to say, am I just trying to be responsible, or am I just keeping myself where I'm comfortable?
Right. Well,
we have to learn how to get uncomfortable. We get to be comfortable being uncomfortable, because change is all that's ever going to continue to happen. Things change.
Right.
And that's the good news and the bad news. The bad news is when you're doing well, you're like, I don't want this to change. But when you're down in the dumps, that's my anchor. This too will change. This is going to change. I'm just going to hang on to this idea that this will shift. Right. So that's the good news some days, is that it will change.
Yeah, everything does. Nothing stays constant unless, a lot of people, and especially my clients, I hear it all the time, they talk about being stuck, well, that's their choice. Right. And I believe, again, through my experience and pain and all of that, and certainly joy, that there are two emotions, right? It's either fear or love. If we boil it down, there's two emotions. And which do we choose? And if we're not doing something, are we not doing it out of love? Probably not. We're not doing it out of fear, right? Just what you said.
Love is the antidote to fear.
Yeah. It's just two emotions. It's, that's how I, try to help my son determine how he's feeling. Is this from a place of fear, or is this from a place of love? And those things that you have to, it's okay to acknowledge that you're afraid. And certainly we all are in certain instances, but to figure out what that means and how it feels, right? To not move through it so quickly. I've had friends that when I've been, emotional or crying, and again, they say, oh, stop crying. Parents have said it brothers, anybody, partners, those types of things. Oh, just stop crying. And I always say to them now, because I've been through it for so long, decades and decades of therapy, like, I don't want to stop crying. I want to feel my feelings, even if
Yes.
even if it is fear. I want to know what it feels like so that I know when it pops up again, right? So I always say, like, don't
Yes.
ask me to stop crying. Let me feel it. I don't want to repress these emotions anymore. I've worked too hard not to feel them and spent too much money.
Yeah, that's a perfect point, because that's performative. People want you to perform because they don't want to be uncomfortable with you crying, right? It's why men tell us smile. I'm like, go fuck yourself. I don't have to smile because you want to see me smile. Like, don't tell me what to do. And I remember during my divorce, I was crying in front of grocery store people. I was crying in front, like, I had to cancel my Pilates membership, which I had signed a year contract, and she asked me why, and I came undone, and I was like, oh my God, you're falling apart. And I was like, who cares?
Right?
You're falling apart right now. You don't have to perform for these people and act like you've got your act together. I don't have my act together at all.
Right. And that's okay at that time to not have it, and to show other people vulnerability, that it's okay for them to have it too.
Yeah.
So
I think
such a powerful thing.
Your point is important, that, you do need to feel those emotions. And anger is another one. People want to suppress their anger, right? I have to keep the peace. I can't be mad at my husband. I can't be, mad at my friends or whatever. You're entitled to anger, and anger will teach you a lesson. Listen to it and listen to your fears. So there's two things I want to say before, I know we've probably got to run here soon. But fear, I call them little demons. And when they show up, I'm like, come on in, sit down. We're going to have tea. What do you got to say? Because I want to hear what they're trying to tell me, right?
Yeah,
and I
to
remember
learn from
before I remember I was going to start my business. I was like, I'd gotten out of grad school, and I was like, oh my God. My friend was like, what do you want? I was like, I just want to take pictures of people and get paid for it. And as soon as I said it out loud, I was like, I could do that. So I started setting up my business, and then fear crept in. And I was like, okay, you know what? Come on in. What do you got to say to me?
Yeah.
And they were like, And they were like,
sounds like you hit it head on.
You've never completed anything. You've never finished anything. And I was like, some history will tell you that. I was like, okay, I didn't actually open a bakery and coffee shop in Minturn because I started to walk down the path, and I discovered I didn't care enough about it to have the desire to put together the business plan and try to find an investor. Like, that sounded boring to me. So I got far enough down that path to figure out it wasn't for me. Photography is what I've been doing. Photography is what I want to do. And guess what? I did get my bachelor's degree. I was 30, but I finished it, and I got my master's degree. Took me till I was 37, but I finished it. So don't tell me I don't finish things. You can leave the room now. Get out, get in the back seat.
I'll take care of my friend.
Right. So you
Tanya,
have to
I want to be conscious of the time, and I want to just thank you before we run out of it. I want to thank you so much for being here today. I learned a lot of things about how I talk to my friend, which is me, and about fear, and that it's okay to feel our emotions. So I appreciate that. And I want you to know that this conversation today was everything. And thank you for showing up here today for yourself, Tanya, and I really appreciate your time. That's the whole point, isn't it? Is showing up for ourselves. And listeners today, both from your viewership and mine, I want, if anything today resonated with you or hit home, and you felt like you've been seen not only from the front side of the camera, but from yourselves, and that you've been called out, we want to hear from you. So subscribe and leave us things. And if it really helped you, and you think it'll help somebody else, forward this podcast to them as well. And let's keep the conversation going. And I want you to be able to find us. So to go to our websites, go to our podcasts, and listen to us, because we all have valuable things that we can share and learn from each other. And I want you to stop performing and start actually moving and looking within ourselves to do things. So go out to my website, book a free discovery call with me. The link's in the show notes as well. And, it's no pressure. Let's just talk. That's what we need to do, is talk and process our feelings and our views and our vision of where we want to go. So let's just move forward together collectively. And so I want to thank you today for showing up here for yourself and for us, Tanya and myself. Thank you. Thanks for listening. And until next time, keep chasing purpose.